So a verdict was handed down today in the trial of Bradley Manning. Now, Bradley Manning is the whistleblower who leaked classified documents to Wikileaks. Now, the most controversial charge against Bradley Manning was aiding the enemy, to which he was found not guilty. Now, I wouldn't cheer just yet, because Bradley Manning was found guilty of 19 of 21 other charges. Now, that includes violating laws pertaining to the Espionage Act, as well as theft of government property. Those charges alone, since he has been found guilty of them, he could be facing over 100 years in prison. Remember, the charge of aiding the enemy would have meant life in prison alone. So, as much as the charge of being found not guilty of the charge of aiding the enemy is good news, it's also still pretty bad for Bradley Manning. Now, of course, the sentence will be handed down tomorrow at about 9:30 in the morning. So we'll have to stay tuned of what happens. Now, during the trial, prosecutors had basically tried to say that Manning aided the enemy because he knew that what he released on the internet would or could have been read by Al-Qaeda or Osama bin Laden. Stop and think about that for a minute. Had he been convicted of aiding the enemy, that means that anybody who put anything classified on the internet could get life in prison. That includes journalists and other whistleblowers. That's a pretty bad precedent that it would have set. Of course, thankfully, at least for now, most journalists are safe. But of course, back to Bradley Manning. To me, Bradley Manning is a hero. Now, why do I say that? Well, because he released information that we needed to know, what the government is doing in our name. One of the videos that he released led to the Arab Spring. Not to mention, it showed the killings of civilians by American forces, as well as 2 Reuters journalists that were gunned down by the Apache crew. Now, of course, Manning, when Manning had saw this, and of course, a lot of the charge against Manning, the prosecution had tried to paint him as somebody who was irresponsible with the information that he had. Oh, he's just throwing information around for anybody to see. He's jeopardizing, national security by releasing this information. Not so much. Now, actually, Bradley Manning had went to his superior officers before releasing this information to WikiLeaks, and actually had went to a couple of different establishment news organizations, including the New York Times and the Washington Post, that did not return his calls or get back to him at all. Now, the defense in Manning's case said that he had leaked this information because the American people had the right to know. That is why he's a hero, and that is why Bradley Manning is a whistleblower, a classic whistleblower, just like Daniel Ellsberg. So what should happen to Manning? And I know it's kind of a pipe dream for me, but I want to see Manning released. Remember, he had already spent 3 years in prison prior to his court appearance. And when he was in prison, he was tortured psychologically, put in solitary confinement, stripped naked every night. That is torture. That is cruel and unusual punishment. So what I want to see tomorrow, and I know it's not going to happen, but what I want to see And what Manning deserves is for the judge to say, you know what? You've served your time. You did what you thought was right. And you served your time. You're free to go. That's what I want to see. That would be justice.